All right, my people, my people, my people. So this might be about the third time I've tried to record this video over the span of like a month or so. Um, and really it's because I just try to do these in one take and not have to do the whole chop it up editing job and whatnot. Because if I were to do that, then I would have had this video out about a month ago. So anyway, today's review, as you can see on the description or the title, is Dua's Moda Elixir. Now, you might be asking, why does your Moda Elixir look weird? Because the cap is super tight. Now, ordinarily, that would be an amazing thing, but it's to the point where the cap is so tight that it literally has either come off of some people's bottles or has the whole rotating collar thing, such as my personal bottle. So, you know, shouts out to Do It. Actually, technically, this bottle was free. So, shouts out to Do It. I just thought about that actually. This bottle was technically free because I said something about the collar. So before I even start, that's one thing I want to make mention. Do It, you guys have got to improve on your 100 milliliter bottles. Whether, I don't know if you guys need to change the bottle design, change, how it's crimped on or what. But hopefully, I'm rooting for you guys because I don't have any ill will towards anybody or any company unless they, do something to me or my family or something. But otherwise, I try to root for everybody. So that's one little bit of criticism for Dua. I would say, please, for the sake of your customers, although they have great customer service, they have some of the best customer service, but for the sake of your customers, maybe want to change the bottle design of your 100 milliliter bottles. Now, on to the actual review portion of the video. So, Dua's Moda Elixir, I'm going to just come out and just plainly say it, is potentially the closest clone that you can get to Vintage Aventus. There, I said it. If you want to stop the video, please don't. But if you want to stop the video, there's my thoughts on it. Now, I have 11 Y02 right here. As you can see, the old, Silver Creed, not as shiny here, but still pretty shiny. And I also have 11Z01. This is actually a tester I got. This is not the right cap, but this is a tester that I got about a few weeks ago or so. And actually, unfortunately, the sprayer mechanism is faulty. So, I can still wear the juice, but the sprayer mechanism is faulty. But I can say that I have a legit 11Z01, full bottle. But like I said, Moda Elixir is literally the closest thing that you can get, to my nose, to a vintage batch of Aventus, at least from what I've smelled from clones. Now, having said that, do I think that it is the best smell? No. Do I think that in terms of pinning it up against Emperor or Emperor X Straight by Parfums Vintage, is it better? No. In fact, just to kind of touch base on those fragrances, I personally think that Emperor and Emperor X Straight both come off as higher quality smelling fragrances. And the main difference between this and those particular fragrances are the opening of Emperor and Emperor X Straight are probably more pleasant, in my personal opinion. Where this, I feel like you get more. This with Moda Elixir, I feel like you get more almost like a sort of lemon vibe, and with Emperor and Emperor X Straight, you definitely get pineapple, but it's more balanced. And as far as the dry downs for all three, which whether or not you want to talk Emperor or Emperor X Straight, or Moda Elixir, the main thing with Moda Elixir is that the dry down is a bit more powerful, more in your face, and a bit more overall smoky. Where Emperor X-Straight and the EDP, they both have that sort of smoky vibe on the dry down, but it's a bit more airy. However, overall, I think that Emperor X-Straight are more pleasant fragrances. So, in a nutshell, I would say both of those, Emperor and Emperor X-Straight, are more crowd pleasers. So I feel like you would get more compliments with those two versus Moda Elixir. But the main thing and the thing that's most impressive to me with Moda Elixir is how much it actually does remind me of my 11 batches. It really does remind me of them. Now, there's differences that I can really tell, but it's got that sort of 11 era. Yeah, I mean, it's, to be honest, that's a funny thing too. To be perfectly honest, when I first got Moda Elixir, I wasn't really all that impressed. I just thought it was okay. I thought it had been hyped more than it really should have been. And this is also coming off of the back of me getting Casino Elixir. And me smelling Casino Elixir, I've never been super impressed with Casino Elixir. And if you go on the Dua group on Facebook, you'll see a lot of hype for Casino Elixir. It's like, this is one of the best. If you're gonna have any Dua, you should have Casino Elixir in your arsenal. And personally, I could do without Casino Elixir. Like, I think that it's just purely okay. To me, it smells mostly like fruit punch in a fragrance. That's the best way I can describe it. It's like a fruit punch type of vibe. But, however, saying that, just as a side note, I actually do think that Casino Elixir pairs really well with Parfums Vintage, Beyond Noir. Beyond Noir layered with Casino Elixir, I think is nice. Not like overly exotic, or it's not something that's gonna have people stop you in your tracks and be like, what are you wearing? Like, but yeah, I feel like it adds a certain depth and layer to Casino Elixir, which I think is missing, but it also offsets some of the off-putting qualities of Beyond Noir. If somebody ever wanted bacon in a fragrance, you got Beyond Noir. Maybe we'll do a full review of that as well. But yeah, as far as Moda Elixir, as far as performance, it performs really, really well. I always get about 8 hours or so, at least. Closer to 10, but I like to just cut it off at 8 if I can't necessarily all the time remember consistently how many times it's gotten me past 8. I'll just give it 8 and then leave it for the wear. But it does perform really, really good. Again, I think you really appreciate it if you've had older Aventus. And that's the main thing. If you've only had the newer Aventus, say, 17 batches and and later, then you might not respect Moda Elixir as much. But if you've had the older batches, then you'll be like, okay, But my thing with Aventus these days, and really just in general, is although I love the fragrance and I also really love the sort of the lore around it, I've come to realize that I've come to realize two things. One, maybe even three things. One, it's not my favorite fragrance. I It's the only fragrance that I have 13 bottles, and one vintage decant. But that's mainly due to the lure and the fact that I just personally like to collect things. But aside from that, it's definitely not my favorite. That's number one. It's not the most crowd pleasing. That's number two. So you could either wear something like maybe Dior Sauvage or Chanel, Blue de Chanel, or Paco Rabanne 1 million, or Dior Homme Intense, Dior Parfum. You could wear any of those, and they'll probably get you more compliments than Aventus. Just my personal opinion. But I don't have 13 bottles of any of those fragrances, so that, tells you right there. Also, the last thing I can come to say is, just in general, I think that Aventus is Aventus at the end of the day. You'll have some, people that, in my personal opinion, I kind of consider Aventus snobs, and will, speak low on certain batches, especially like there's this notion that every batch after 16 just sucks, and it's just like, no. And they'll also say things about longevity, which the performance issue of Aventus has been touched on literally since 2010, which is something that's always been kind of sort of funny to me, that like people forget. If you go on Base Notes right now and go on the Aventus thread, the batch thread that they have, right, and there's three different batch threads. There's part 1, part 2, and part 3. If you go on the first one that starts literally in 2010, there are people who complain about performance issues in Aventus on that page in 2010. In 2011, same thing. 2012, same thing, and so on and so forth. Out the gate, I've noticed I've only really had one batch that performed really, really well out of the gate, and that was actually 17R01, which is ironic because if you go on, the Aventus groups, you'll notice when people talk about 17R01, they'll call it like, an average batch. And I've actually gotten flack for saying that it has a sort of smoky vibe. And then people will come in and say, if you never smelled vintage, then you don't know it has a smoky vibe. And I'm just like, well, I actually do have vintage, so you're not telling me anything that I don't know. I also have a bunch of people call heavy hitters or grail batches. So it's just like, people just kind of like to talk out of their ass. But one thing I've noticed about 17R01 is that it actually reminds me quite a bit, especially on the dry down, of vintage batches. And what's also funny is there's two things that I found funny. One, smoke is not a actual note. Like you can't put smoke in a bottle. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't. You get it. It's just like smoke is not a legit note. That's number one. I know, the birch and the oak moss, but smoke in itself is not a legit note. So it's funny to me because if that's the case, then you can, through chemistry, recreate that certain vibe of certain fragrances. You don't have to have, just because there's a fragrance that smells like lemons doesn't mean that there's legit lemons in it. You could have a mix of chemicals that produce a fragrance that is close to lemon. Unless I'm just completely bullshitting and I'm completely mistaken, but that's just how I see things, and that's how I feel. So 17R01, kind of sidetracking, to me reminds me very close, in the dry down especially, of my 15X21, and my 15X21 quite reminds me of Moda Elixir's dry down, and Moda Elixir's dry down quite reminds me of my 2011 batches. I actually also have 11Y01 in a 10 milliliter decant. So, you know, I've got 3 different 11 batches at this point. So my main point is saying, for the most part, Aventus is Aventus. Yes, the opening and mid from batch to batch can smell vastly different, but at the same time, once you get to the dry down, for the most part, they all kind of dry down to the same fragrance. Now, you'll have subtle nuances here and there with certain dry downs. You know, some batches might have more vanilla in the dry down. Some batches might be way more smoky in the dry down. Other batches might be a bit more woody, and it can also smell very smoky. So if you took the average person out on the street and you had, like, let's talk about 17R01. If you had 17R01 and took the average person out in the street right now, and you know, put your fist up to their face or wherever you have it sprayed and say, what do you get from this? On the dry down, they might actually say smoky. So if other people who aren't fragrance aficionados think that it smells smoky, then, you know, who are the Aventus snobs to try to tell people otherwise? But, you know, some people, I feel like it's come to the day where people have hyped up and created such a lure around Aventus that they want to make sure that when they try to sell their vintage batches, people think that they're buying something that smells just so much different from, you know, a 16 or 15 or even what you can get from the store today. And it does, the formulas do smell different, but other than the fruitiness of the newer formula, it kind of smells very similar to the old stuff. There are differences, though. Don't get me wrong. There are differences, but it's not so much where, let me put it this way. What you would spend on a 2010, 11, 12, 13, and potentially 14 batch, it's not worth what you're going to probably pay for those batches. The difference is not that much as far as money wise. Like, I would not buy another 11 Z01 for the money that I know that they go for ever again. It's nice to have a Grail batch, but at the same time, other than that, it doesn't really, like, it doesn't smell $1,000 better than, you know, a 19 or a 20 batch. I'm sorry to say. But anyway, that's my review of Moda Elixir. I know I've talked more about other fragrances and Aventus just as much as I talked about Moda Elixir, but that's my opinion on Moda Elixir. It's actually a really good fragrance. It's unfortunate that it's been discontinued, but honestly, if you really want something that's basically in the ballpark and you don't want to break the bank, because I've seen Moda Elixir at this point, people are trying to resell it on eBay and different fragrance groups for like $250 or, you know, or $350 or whatever. And at that point, you might as well just buy real Aventus. But having said that, if you don't want to really break the bank and you want something that's basically 90-ish% similar, Parfums Vintage, Emperor, and Emperor Extrait. So that's all I got for y'all today. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Give me a thumbs up, give me a thumbs down, thumbs all around, you know what I'm saying? Help me out with the, you know, the algorithms and everything. And, you know, I'll be producing more content in the future. And probably within the next couple videos or so, you might see a whole new setup. We'll be moving pretty soon, so it is what it is. But yeah, Moda Elixir is a great fragrance, but since you can't find it anymore, I would actually just get Emperor or Emperor Extrait, personally. Or, for what people want, just buy real Aventus. So I think you'll be happy after the first 3 or 4 wearings. You know, give it some time. Always give Aventus some time. Wear it once, and then rotate out some. You know, rotate it with your other fragrances. Then wear it the next week. Rotate it. Keep rotating, and maybe wait another 2 weeks. Then within the 3rd or 4th wearing, it would have blossomed and start the maturing process, and it will be a great fragrance. It will be amazing. I doubt that you'll have any longevity issues. And yeah, so hold some peace, hold some love, and all that stuff. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Peace.